Welcome to Viewers Digest. I'm Gene Brendler.
And I'm Linda John.
Professional wrestling has been around for a very, very long time, and it seems that it's being rediscovered with all the attention it's been getting in the media lately. And much has been said about whether it's a sport or just plain good entertainment. On our program, we're going to look at the people who make their living by it. We start with a man who's been promoting pro wrestling in this area for a very long time.
Don Owen is a short and quiet man in contrast to his wrestlers. But in the eyes of the wrestling world, he has a loud voice and a very big heart. We visited with Don on his ranch near Eugene.
From the Portland Sports Arena, this is Portland Wrestling, the very best in professional wrestling.
Well, 60 years ago, your family, what would be your grandfather?
No, my father started promoting back there over 60 years ago.
Why did he ever get into wrestling promotion, do you know?
Well, he was crippled up in a logging accident, so he wasn't able to do any real hard physical work. So he got into promoting while he was working in a clothing store down here. Started promoting boxing to start with. And the first wrestling match we put on had 13 people in the place down there in the Eugene Armory. And we've come quite a long way since the day of 13.
And you worked along with him, and that's how you did it?
Yes, I always been helping him ever since I was a kid. I used to fan boxers with a towel when we were having boxing matches. And since then, I've announced and taken tickets and sold tickets and about everything that a guy could do on this thing.
And you're passing on then what you learned to...
Same thing, and my one son runs the concession and sells the tickets up there in Portland, and Barry's been taking over. Sooner or later, he'll probably take over everything.
Well, how do you explain this dual life that you live? I mean, here you are in the tranquility of a farm, and come Saturday night, at least for Portland, why, it's hollering, violence, kicking, bloodletting. What? How do you explain that?
Well, I go up there, and really promoting is a very nerve-wracking business. I think people must stay up all night dreaming of things that worry me. And the reason why we're doing something different out here, well, I like working on the ranch with my kids. We're kind of a family. We kind of work together with everything. And my oldest son there, he and his wife take care of this ranch out here and do most of the work out here. And then the breeding program's all up to him. But one reason why I do that, if I get mad and I get frustrated and I want up and kick one of those wrestlers, he flattens me out right on the floor. But I can kick this bull, and unless he gets real mad, then he might take after me. But basically, I can kick him pretty safely. But some of the wrestlers, I can't.
Basically, you're a beef grower then?
Yes, we're raising registered beef here.
How many?
Well, we have about 300 cows, and they all got calves, and then we always got a bunch of young yearling bulls and heifers around, so I imagine sometimes we might have 800 on the ranch at the same time, and then we sell some off, the younger stuff for breeding and different things.
How many acres do you have down here?
Well, there's about 550, 600 acres here on this place, and then the other place where my main place is down there on the other one. This is the main place.
Which do you put the more importance on? Which do you do the most work on, the farming angle or the promoting angle?
Well, the farming takes more physical labor, but the promoting is a nerve-wracking strain, because there's so many problems that come up, not only with TV and newspapers and commissioners and people that run the wrestlers. It's more of a nerve-wracking thing. It keeps you awake nights. You wake up at night and get to worry and you can't go back to sleep. That's my biggest problem.
So you need this physical labor to balance things out.
This is kind of like a hobby that gives me something else to think about besides all the wrestlers and everything. I guess if you take everything too seriously, that the problems and everything like that, well, you could go crazy.
Crazy or not, Don has managed to be around for the 60th anniversary of his family connected with pro wrestling. Besides being up there in the ring to announce the bouts on Saturday night television, we were interested in just what a wrestling promoter does. Are you the only licensed promoter in the state of Oregon?
No, there's a couple more, and there's several boxing promoters that puts on boxing that's licensed. It just happens that in these little towns, it's just not two or three promoters or matchmakers aren't needed, or it's not economically feasible to do that. But that's up to the commission. The commission can appoint one matchmaker, or they could have one every night of the month. But if they had 30 wrestling matches a month, in 2 months they wouldn't have any income, or there wouldn't be any.
In theory, then, you have no competition as a promoter. Is there anybody else in the state who's giving you a problem?
Not right at this moment, and I don't think it's a matter that somebody giving me a problem. It's not economically sound to have a whole bunch of matchmakers in there trying to do it. The wrestlers wouldn't make any money, and the promoters wouldn't make any money, and the city wouldn't make any money. So it's just not feasible to have a whole bunch of different guys trying to promote.
Well, now, we hear a lot today about the World Federation, the new look in professional wrestling. It's coming out of where, Atlanta or New York?
Coming out of New York.
How is that affecting you locally?
Very badly, in my point of view, for the simple reason that they got control of the two national cables, and then they put tapes in every town, and they have so many of them, they're just flooding you with free wrestling bouts. And if people can sit there and see 17 hours of wrestling, there's no incentive for them to go down to any arena and pay their money to see any more of it. And there's nothing illegal about it, but they are certainly eliminating one promoter after another all over the country.
Where do your wrestlers come from?
Well, they're all over the United States and Canada, even Mexico, all over North America. I probably get 20 calls a week from different guys wanting to get booked. One thing a lot of people don't understand, they're self-employed, and they're independent contractors. They come in, they have the right to leave anytime they want, and but we can't have 25 guys show up out here all at once because you can't keep them busy. And so usually I try to keep about just 10 or 12 wrestlers around at a time. And I get those, and I'm over-cautious in lots of cases, because before I'll tell a guy, yeah, I'll be able to use you, I want to check with the other promoters and some of the other wrestlers to see what kind of a character he is, and if he's dependable, if he makes his spots where he's supposed to be, and that he pays his bills, and a lot of things like that you take into consideration before you just tell a guy to come on in. And then I've got to know that I've got to make room for him. So it's only common practice that you try to tell a guy, look, I got a chance to get a real top-notch wrestler coming in here, so I'm going to have to make some room. So you've been here for, say, 8 or 10 months or a year, and I think it would probably be better to look for someplace else to go. And then I can make calls to the other promoters to see if they can possibly use them. I try to help them every way I can like that. But you can't keep bringing guys in unless you're getting rid of some. So it's common courtesy. There's no set law for it to give a man so much time, and they in turn, if a guy gets a chance, some promoter calls him and says, look, I've got a good spot here for you, and I've checked your record and everything, and I'd like to use you down here. And so he wants to go, so he comes and gives me the same courtesy. He says, I want to tell you that I have a chance to go to Texas, say, where I think I can make some real good money, and so I want to give you a month's notice so you have a chance to get somebody else in to replace me. At the same time, if I have a guy coming in, and I'll give him the same courtesy, but I'll tell him that a month in advance if there's anything I can do to help you get someplace else, well, I'll certainly be glad to call and do it. But most of it, you pick up the wrestlers wherever you want. Now, there's a lot of wrestlers, and some of them aren't worth hardly putting on a card sometimes. but you check up on him to the best of your ability. Through the other promoters mentioned, is this guy get over with the people good? Is he an action wrestler? Is he moving out there all the time? Or is he just a guy that just falls down and lays there and doesn't do anything? So they'll tell you pretty frankly, well, this guy's been a good card for us, so then I can take a chance and bring him in. But
is there an association of promoters then? I mean, do all promoters within the United States work together to some degree?
No, I can't exactly say that. There's a lot of very guys that don't belong to any organization. Actually, the National Wrestling Association is just more or less where you can go down and meet and talk about TV problems and wrestling problems and stuff like that, just so you get to know them. So if you call up and need some help sometimes, once I had about 5 guys that got a chance to go overseas, so they come up and told me that we want to give you our notice that we're going to be leaving in 3 weeks. Well, here I am. It's pretty hard to get 5 guys that's going to do us any good in short order like that. So I've got a few promoters that I'm a little more friendly with than others. I call them up, can you help me out any? I need a couple of guys that are good boys. And so they scout around, and if they got some, well, they'll send them to me. It's because I have a friendship.
Don, who decides who wrestles who? Is that your job?
Well, that's my job as a matchmaker, to match them up what I think will be the most interesting to the fans that pay their money. I'm not always right. Believe me, nobody's ever right. I put on a couple of matches that really bombed. And I thought they were going to be great. It doesn't happen that way. But I try to line them up against each other. Now, you always have a bunch of people call up and say, why don't you get rid of Mean Mike Miller? Why don't you get rid of Rip Oliver? Why don't you get rid of this guy? And I says, lady, if I got rid of all those rough guys, you wouldn't turn your television set on. If I had 5 straight clean matches, which I prefer, and it's a lot easier on the wrestlers, too. They prefer just to have a wrestling match. But people would shut their television sets off because they don't think it's exciting enough.
Don, in a wrestling match, it seems to evolve that there's one good guy and one bad guy. Is that something you decide, or does that happen, or how does that happen?
Well, that's quite true, because that makes a more exciting match. The people come there, they either come to see you win, or they come to see you get the devil beat on. There's no in between. If it's in between, everybody goes out and smokes a cigarette, and that guy is never going to make you any money or make any money for himself. So basically, you try to put a clean-cut young kid in against some guy like Rip Oliver that's rough. And I used to remember when you rabbit punch a guy, it'd start a riot. Well, things have changed a lot, over the years. And so, naturally, I try to match them up to the best of my ability. So that it makes a good, exciting match. I like to have one good scientific match on each card. People, you don't hear much cheering or much hollering or anything. They just sit there and we'll give them a big hand when they're through, because it's something they like to see. But if you had a whole card of them, 6 of them, there wouldn't be anybody left in the place but the janitor and me, and I'd probably left too.
There's an instant replay. And drop.
Success of Don Owen is due to his concern for his wrestlers, his ability to change with the times, and his determination to give the fans what they want to see.
This is why Portland Wrestling is the longest-running local TV show in this market. We know the fans are there because the program has the highest rating for its time period. But what about the wrestlers? How do they feel about Don Owen, the promoter?
I was in professional wrestling 12 years before I came and wrestled in the Pacific Northwest. That's a little bit of a credit to Don Owens himself, as I was known all over the world of professional wrestling for 10 years of that. And I had a very, very good name and a very, very well-known name all over the world. But it took me 12 years to come to the Pacific Northwest to wrestle. That means, in my mind and every professional wrestler's mind, Don Owens is the epitome of professional wrestling promoters. He's not going to take just people that can't hold and carry the load. Don Owens is a great promoter. He's a very trustworthy man. He's one of the nicest men I've ever worked for. And I'd like to say happy 60th anniversary, Don, to you and your family. You deserve it, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
I feel the same way Bobby does. My career started, I went to Portland
sports arena and talked to Mr. Don Owen. It's been almost 3 years ago, and at first, he didn't want to attempt to break into professional wrestling because there was another wrestler named Mike Popovich that was from Portland, and he quit professional wrestling here, and he didn't want to break in another local boy. So he told me to go up to Canada, and so I went up there, and I got, what counted on me. And 3 months later, he kept a close eye on me and called me back in. I had my first match on Saturday Night Television against Rip Oliver. And I owe everything to Mr. Don Owens. And I'm not saying that lightly. Don Owens is one of the greatest promoters in professional wrestling today.
How do you view Don Owens as a promoter?
How do I view Don Owens? As a man I've fought with day in and day out, on and off, for probably 5 or 6 years. I fought with the man to try to bring him around to my way of thinking, which obviously has his own point of view, and in a way I've got to respect it for him, respect him for it. But the same token, I do fight with the man every day. But I will say this: I have a great deal of respect for the man because he is a promoter, and I work for a lot of different promoters, not only in this country but outside the USA. And many of them treat you like livestock. They don't really care. When your arm is broke, well, I'm sorry, son. Maybe when it's healed, I can put you back to work, or something like that. Don Owens has a great deal of compassion. I saw the man one time. A young wrestler came in here who had very little experience, and there was very little money in his pocket also. And he had a death in the family. And Don Owens didn't think a thing about, taking $500 out of his pocket and giving it to the boy and saying, listen, when you're ready to come back and you've got your family affairs squared away, come on back. Well, the guy never showed up. The guy never came back. Don Owens got his $500, and I'm sure it didn't bother him any because I'm sure the man's got enough to cover that bad debt. But, that just shows the compassion that the man has. Now, he's got an image problem. You talk about me. There's a man with an image problem. Don Owens, as you view him every week on KPTV, on Channel 12, on wrestling, you get this small man acting very, very meek and like you don't know exactly what he's doing in the middle of all these people. But believe me, that's one tough individual when you are constantly disobeying the rules. He can be as strict as any father. He can be a hard man. And in that, again, I have to respect him because he has his beliefs. He's not in this business or this sport simply to draw money. The man is there because, number one, I think he loves it. Number two is, it's still, his age, he's competitive. He won't fret. He wants more money. So, and therefore, I think the people of Portland and the people of the Northwest derive a great deal from Don Owens. He's actually given more to the sport than the sport has given him.
There have been many stars of wrestling over the years. I can remember names like Shag Thomas, Eric Patterson, Kurt von Poppenheim, and Lonnie Main. There were many other colorful grapplers, and I asked Don to reminisce a little.
In 60 years of wrestling, promoting wrestling, Don, you must have come across some rather picturesque characters. Odd individuals, flamboyant individuals. Could you recall a few of them for us?
Oh, for instance, Gorgeous George. Right before the war, he came up from Texas just a kid. And my dad started using him wrestling a little, and he bought him his first suit of clothes he ever had in his life. And all during the war around here, he married a local girl, and her father raised turkeys. And I used to be one of the biggest turkey ranchers on the coast. And so this man sold me turkeys, and through the connection, Gorgeous George got acquainted with his daughter, and he married her there in the ring for a turn-away crowd. And then right after the war, he left to go to California because television just got out. But how he got to meet Gorgeous George was this woman that he married. She could sew real well, so she made him about 3 or 4 beautiful robes, real expensive ones, fancy stuff. And so one night down there, he took a little time, but instead of just like an old towel, throw it out on the floor when you come in. But he folded up his robe carefully so to be nice. Some logger, we used to have a lot of loggers, and still do. And so this logger says, "Oh, come on, you big sissy. Go ahead and let's wrestle and quit fooling around that dumb robe." She turned around and says, "I'll have you know that's not a dumb robe. I spent 2 weeks even making that thing." And he says, "Well, why don't you just tend to your own business? Why don't you tend to yours?" And the next thing you know, she hauled off and slapped him one. And he turned around and slapped her back, which probably was a good thing. But anyway, George saw him up in the ring, slap his wife, so he jumped out and knocked the guy 3 rows back through the chairs, and then all the people started in booing him. And even though for 2 months he sat around and let guys beat him up and everything, trying to get back in their good graces, but they'd boo him every time he get in the ring with one of them robes. So finally he just says the hell with it, and he just took plenty of time just defying them, holding up his robes, and the coordinator got to call him gorgeous because he had these real fancy, colorful robes. So when the war was over, he went down in there, and television had just first come out in California, and he got on there, and he became Gorgeous George, and he rented a valet and was spraying the ring and everything like that, and he became the biggest attraction, that thing. In fact, when he died, the whole city of Los Angeles closed up City Hall and all went to his funeral. He was buried in a casket with his purple robe on and everything, and they don't even do that to movie stars down there in that part of the country. So he was the first, one of the great showmen. And now you got to have showmen. When people ask me, is there any showmanship there? Certainly there is. It's an integral part of wrestling. It's an integral part of most everything else. Anything professional's got to have some color and some showmanship in it. When a guy goes and he wants to display his goods in a store, he tries to pick up a fancy window that will attract attention. And that's the reason why guys wear fancy robes, and some of them dye their hair blonde so they'll look different than the other guy. The thing that looks ridiculous, what I got to keep watching for, is all of a sudden I got 7 guys and they're all blondes. And it's terrible. And I either got to get rid of some of them or make somebody dye his hair black.
We remember such names as Pappenheim, Tony Bourne, Lonnie Main, of course, as we mentioned earlier. What happens to professional wrestlers when they get too old to wrestle?
Well, there's lots of things I can tell you about that. Basically, they've all made a little money and saved a little money, and they go into a different kind of business. Like Tony Bourne, he's been selling real estate. And he was on wrestling so much that he was probably the best-known real estate man in the whole Northwest.
I started wrestling, Gene, really back when I was 10, 11 years old, amateur, you know, and then I went to the Navy in World War II and come out of World War II, and I was looking for a good way to make a living. I was a radioman in the service, and I had a couple of friends back in the Midwest who were wrestlers, and one had been an amateur wrestler at the same time I was, and he was into professional wrestling, and he told me he was making $200 a week, which was great money back then, you know. So he talked me into it, and I started. I had my first professional wrestling match the night that Rocky Marciano won the World Heavyweight Championship. I'm not going to tell you what year that was. You're going to figure out how old I am pretty good.
Then what brought you to the Northwest, to Portland?
It had a great reputation. First I'd been in Mexico, wrestling in Mexico. And there was a boy from Boise, Idaho there, and he talked me into coming up into Idaho and Washington, which was a different territory at that time from the one that the Owens boys was running here. And so I came to Boise and worked out of that office over there, and then, well, word traveled around the business if a guy's got anything on the ball at all or anything like that. And so Don Owens heard about me from over there and contacted the promoter over there and got me to come over here. Well, the first time I came here, I was still comparatively green and inexperienced as far as professional wrestling goes. I didn't stay around too long that first time, but boy, when I came back the second time, I surely unloaded both barrels.
You've been in professional wrestling in this market probably longer than any other wrestler. Am I right?
You know, I wrestled in 4 different decades. I started in the 50s, And I wrestled, well, I had my last match in 81. So I wrestled in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And there's not too many that can say that. No.
Do you miss it at all?
Well, I could lie to you and say no. I don't miss the traveling. The traveling was, you know, every day you're in an airport or in a car or something. I've even been stuck in places where I've had to hitchhike. But actually, yeah, that's why I go down around Saturday night and walk through the dressing room and get the smell of the sweat and the blood from the guys coming in and out of there. But really, I'm glad to be out of it now. You know, 29 years is a long time, and I took a lot of bumps in that time.
And I also had a man that wrestled and spent 4 years while he's wrestling for me, putting himself through chiropractic school. And now, as soon as he got his degree and everything, he practiced for 6 months with some good doctor, chiropractor, and now he's got a big plant in Salem, probably the best chiropractic business in the whole state.
I had my introduction to professional wrestling in 1954 by a fellow named Lou Bertucci, who used to wrestle as a Jungle Boy. I had been lifting weights and winning a number of contests in Southern California, and I was approached by him and was told that I had the capability of being a good professional wrestler. I had some amateur background from the YMCA, but at the time I was going through high school and college in New York. Wrestling in high school, at the high school level in New York City, was against the law. It was illegal. And so I went into professional wrestling.
Who were some of the wrestlers that you wrestled when you were
here in Oregon? Well, let's see. Tony Boyle and I got started about the same time here. Tony came down from Idaho, and I came down from Calgary. And Bill Savage was here. Luther Lindsay came at a later date. Eric Pedersen, the late Eric Pedersen was here. Henry Lenny was here. Kurt von Poppenheim. Then later on, Nick Kozak came. I wrestled Bruce Ledge for the World Championships. My first time down here in 1956.
Was that your hardest bout?
No, my hardest bout was always with Luther Lindsay. He was the toughest man I ever wrestled. And I always thought that he was tough. Luther was outstanding, and he was great.
You decided to become a chiropractor. A lot of wrestlers go into other work, but because of that physical abuse they must take during that period that they're in professional wrestling, do you have any problems?
Oh, yes. I had my neck broken, my shoulders separated, numerous fingers dislocated. I had my nose broken twice in 1 week. Maurice Vachon dislocated my jaw. One night I was turned to the referee to ask the referee a question. Maurice hit me right in the jaw and dislocated my jaw on the left side. I still got a cracking jaw from that. So you carry these things around. And then, of course, there's just what I don't know if you would call it real trauma, psychological trauma, just hitting the ropes, hitting the mat, hitting the ropes, hitting the mat. After a while, it's just so traumatic. It just creates osteoarthritis. I don't know a single professional wrestler who can look over his shoulder to see if the IRS is following him.
Whether you think pro wrestling is a sport or a show, the one thing that you have to agree on is that the wrestlers have to keep in great physical shape.
In the beginning, a lot of time is spent just working out, and then there are the long travel hours. But life is like that along the road of professional wrestling. For Bobby Jaggers and Billy Jack Haynes, that road is led to the Northwest.
I wrestled in amateur wrestling for quite a few years. I started wrestling in club wrestling, boys clubs, and so forth and so on. And then I went into junior high school and high school and wrestled there, mainly played football and baseball. And then I went to college where I played a little bit of football and a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of baseball, and then I got drafted into the Army. When I got out of the service, I came back and I met a couple wrestlers, and they helped me get in. That's basically how I got into professional wrestling. I always wanted to ever since I was about 10, 11 years old, be a professional wrestler, and now I'm living my dream.
Billy, how did you get started?
I got started professional wrestling the hard way. There really isn't no easy way to get into professional wrestling. Right now, it's the hottest sport in the world, and I hope it continues in this uphill climb. Myself, I went through the pain, the agony, such as Bobby did, anybody else who wants to be a professional wrestler, and only the strong survive. And I got started up in Calgary, which is Canada, and traveled about 3,000 miles a week, wrestled 7 days a week for 3 months, and
like I say, it's a hard way. The bumps, the bruises, the stitches, the knocked out teeth, the broken noses, but here we are today, alive and well.
What's your training schedule like?
My training schedule, basically, now I've been in professional wrestling 12 years. When I was first getting into professional wrestling, I did quite often hit the gym and did a lot of leg work and so forth and so on, but as you are in professional wrestling and as you progressively age in professional wrestling, as they say, your workout regimen changes. Now I don't hit the gym as much, but simply because my shoulders and my knees and my elbows won't take it. I stay in shape most of my wrestling by 7 nights a week, and on an average 20, 25 minutes a night of wrestling, and anybody in the world that goes out and exerts himself for 20 or 25 minutes, that's about the best workout in the world. Like I say, a lot of different people have different training regimens. In fact, there's even a joke going around the dressing room that mine's at Jim's Bar and Grill, but we won't talk about that now.
Myself, I train 6 days a week, 2 hours a day at the Oregon gym. I run about 1 mile a day, 6 days a week, and 3 days a week I like to run upstairs, which is really good for your endurance, for your calves, for your legs. I try and watch basically what I eat, because it's very important. The hours that we keep on the road varies, but basically we're home in bed probably 2 to 4 in the morning, and sometimes we have to stay over in motels. But we travel about 2,000, 2,500 miles a week, so it's very hard to dedicate yourself if you really want to stay in top shape, and that's where I'm at. Bobby's a technician. He's been around a long time. I've only been wrestling professionally for 3 years, and my wrestling skills are coming up. But I want to keep my body and physically, my speed, everything in good shape also.
We see both of you on TV. You have a lot of fans. Women love you. Is life all that glamorous as a professional wrestler?
Glamorous. You want to hear about the glamorous life. The glamorous life is having 2 daughters and a wife and maybe seeing them for a total of 10 hours a week. Knowing the inside of every airport in the United States intimately. Knowing more hotel rooms than most people in a week than more people stay in a lifetime. Sitting down at night after a wrestling match in some town like Duluth, Iowa, and trying to find a restaurant open that you can eat. Going to a hospital in Kansas City, Kansas, and your wife's in Topeka, Kansas, and you have to call her and tell her you're in a hospital and you'll be home tomorrow. If that's a glamorous life, that's wrestling.
Myself, Bobby has hit it perfect, It's hard if you're married. I'm not married. I have been married and I'm divorced through this business, and basically you're apart so much from your family that you really have no family life. And I'm glad that Bobby's held it together. I'm all the power to him. But it's hard to, you're actually married to this business, professional wrestling. You're on the road, you're out of motels, hotels, different towns every night. You travel all over the world. And as far as glamorous, you get to meet a lot of people. I met Mr. Gene Brenner today. I've idolized since I was a kid. I always wanted to meet him, and I met him. He's a fine gentleman. I'll tell you right now, professional wrestling has done everything for me. While I was 28 years old, I never had nothing in my name. I was always a failure in everything I did. And professional wrestling is right here. It's made me a lot closer to my family, the fans, everything. It just made my life a complete turnaround.
Both of you have been in the limelight as pro wrestlers. What's the real Bobby Jaggers like? What's the real Billy Jack Haynes like?
The real Bobby Jaggers. The real Bobby Jaggers is about 3 different people. Number 1 is somebody that'd like to spend more time with his 2 daughters, Amanda and Elizabeth, more time with his wife, Donna. Number 2 would be Bobby Jaggers, who'd like to spend the next 20 years on a good salmon and steelhead fishing hole somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. And the 3rd Bobby Jaggers is the old boy would like to have like about 300 head of cattle and sit on a ranch somewhere and sit on a fence and chew tobacco and talk about going to a rodeo on Saturday. That's basically the Bobby Jaggers.
What's the real Billy Jack Haynes like?
You really want to know?
Yeah.
The real Billy Jack Haynes is down to earth, no better than anybody else, is trying to make a living. I like good humor. I like to laugh. I don't take life too seriously, but then there's times where you have to, My father's going through some bad difficulties right now. I have a cousin that's going through bad difficulties. So I'm really close to my family with good humor. And like I say, this is
me. Excuse me. No smoke, drink, or take drugs, but had a broken nose 2 or 3 times, and I need this assisted vixen here. But that's the only thing I have to do with, with that.
That's rubber in the business.
Excuse me, Bob. Okay, but that is okay. Other than that, we don't smoke, drink, take drugs. We're just trying to influence people the right way. But we're crazy and down-to-earth people know better than anybody else.
You're going to quit drinking beer.
8 weeks. 8 weeks. I've had a beer.
What does the future hold for both of you then? What's life like after wrestling?
I'm sure Bobby will agree with me on this, and probably every professional wrestler will agree with me that the aches, the pain, we get a lot of comments like, is it really all real? But when you wake up in the morning, I think it feels like it's real to you.
If you growl after
my elbows, my knees, ankles, I've had over 300 stitches. I'm not trying to cry anybody's shoulder, I'm just telling you the way it is. I've had my teeth knocked out, my nose broke twice, had my jaw cracked and wired for 6 weeks. When you want to have your money put away and sheltered and so forth, so when you retire, you don't have to work no more. That's my whole goal. I'm sure Bobby's too, because if you make it to 40 or 38 or whatever in this business, you're going to be in a lot of pain, and you're going to have some kind of shelter, some kind of money put away to retire on, and hopefully that's my goal. Bobby's too, probably.
My greatest goal is to one day to leave wrestling as good as I went into it. Not to take anything away from my profession, but maybe to add something to it. And I've been in a lot of feuds in the last couple of years, and a lot of people have tried to hurt me permanently and put me out of professional wrestling. A lot of people in Portland know and around the world. And I've always said one thing. I want to be able, the day that I walk out of the ring and take off my boots for the last time and take off my tights for the last time, I want them to say that they couldn't make the fat kid quit. That's basically what I want to leave it. And I want everybody to know that, just everybody, people that don't think they can do something, you can do it. All you have to do is get out there and do it. I think I proved it. I haven't got the greatest body in the world. I haven't got the most athletic talent in the world. But I made it, and I hope maybe someday there will be somebody watching me that'll say they couldn't make that fat kid quit, and they can't make me quit either.
The good guys versus the bad guys is a constant theme in the ring. Everybody loves the good guys, and they detest the bad guys. Nega Mahariti makes his living as being the antagonist.
I was a great football player at the University of Missouri. And, of course, great football players go on to do great things. Myself, I was drafted to the Cincinnati Bengals. And shortly thereafter, I received my second severe knee injury. And by then, I was going to take, reconstructive surgery on my left knee. And I missed one season. I tried to go back, but everybody else was improving, and of course my leg was gone, and I was slowing down. I taught school for a while, but that just wasn't quite competitive enough for me. I'm very competitive and aggressive by nature, and so I had to, from there, find somewhere to place this aggression. I couldn't do it on the students, obviously, so I took professional wrestling. I wrestled in high school, and I dabbled in it in college because I was on a football scholarship. Dan Devine frowned on the fact that I should wrestle. He thought that I should devote all my time to football, which of course I did. And like I say, after I decided school teaching was not for me, I decided I'd try professional wrestling.
You carry this image of a bad guy. How do you survive that image?
Well, I don't think I'm really a bad guy. After all, I do have a lot of devout followers out there. I think people tag me for that, and I think it's a real misnomer. If someone was to ask me, I find myself there a pleasure to be with, and I think when people view me, they obviously get the wrong idea of exactly what I'm all about. I'm an aggressive person, but also I'm very likable.
What does the future hold for you as a pro wrestler?
The future holds for me as a pro wrestler? Well, I'm 35 years old now. And probably within the next 3 or 4 years, I'll be giving it up. It's just a biological fact. And following chronological order, I'm going on 40, whether I like it or not. But so there will come a time in the next 4 to 5 years where I'm going to have to give it up. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. Financially, I really don't have to worry because I am taken care of in that respect. If the banking system collapses, I might be in some trouble. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know. I
commission that oversees pro wrestling in Portland, and we hear about them when one wrestler unjustifiably attacks another, and the commission will levy a fine. We asked Don about this commission. Who are they, and just how it works?
Well, the duty of the commission is more or less to oversee the thing, what goes on, and they do it for both boxing and wrestling. But they come over and collect the 6%, and they license them. All the wrestlers have got to be licensed, and they have their rules in which you have to have a complete physical before you step in the ring. Usually on wrestlers, it's only once a year because they wrestle every night, and if they're in tip-top shape, why, there's no sense in examining them every night. In boxing, it's a little different. They have to be right over there and examine everybody that goes in the ring and know his background, whether he's been knocked out or something like that. And so they don't have near the problem with wrestling as they do with boxing and keeping supervising it.
In Portland, who serves on the commission?
Yeah, I mean individuals. Well, Nick Scavone has been on there for a long time. He's one of the better-known gentlemen in there. And there's two doctors, Dr. Wilhelmy and Dr. Battaglia. And they've taken special courses in mainly for the boxing because they have to be examined their brain, they have injuries and so forth. So they've taken special courses on so they can serve as a real expert on boxing injuries. The wrestlers don't have that type of injuries, but those two doctors are it. And George Yurkovich, who's always been prominent in sports, he's now retired as a city auditor and is serving on the commission. And the other one is Mutt Constantina, who has been on the commission for quite some time. Now, they collect 6%. It's a state law in the state of Oregon that you commissions collect 6% of your gross. And that is held by the commission for the end of the year, and then they turn it over to the city. Now, that 6% is divided 60% to the Veterans Organization's charity, and the other 40% goes to the city to do whatever they want with it. And a lot of it's put into playgrounds and youth leagues and that type of thing, you know, what's been collected. But one of my sour points in relation to this is the fact that we're the only ones paying. Wrestling mainly. Boxing, they don't have very little boxing in the state of Oregon. Most of it's in Portland. And the boxing has to take out 6%, turn over to the city, and the wrestling does the same in every city.
Does the commission have any say as to how you promote a wrestling match?
Oh, yes, they can take that right any time. They can give me a real heavy argument sometimes over something that might have happened. Maybe I didn't have any control over it. But if some guy gets out of the ring and does something, why, they can call up and tell me, no, don't put that guy on the next card or something like that. But usually they leave it up to me to discipline them in my own manner.
Do they levy fines on particular?
They have the right to levy fines on them if they see that they've done something that is entirely uncalled for or something like that.
Do they also have the right to fine you for some reason?
Yes, they can fine me. In fact, they did one time. I forget what it was about. And I was mad for about 5 years.
Every Saturday night you see and hear the wrestling commentator. And down through the years you'll probably remember such names as Bob McAnally, Ivan Smith, Barney Keep, and Frank Bonham. I even did a short stint at the old Armory myself.
Don Koss is currently in that job. He is also the manager of KRGR Radio in Gresham. So every Saturday night, he becomes the voice of Portland wrestling.
Hello, everybody. I'm Don Koss, your host for Portland Wrestling. And what a night of action we've got for you.
About 100 years ago, and actually, about 1969, 1970, I got involved